Hey guys, it's Captain Thaddeus here. I am in the Everglades, and today I want to talk about frog fishing. What color frog do I use, and how do I decide what color frog to use? The most important thing in bass fishing is there are no rules as far as baits, colors. There's just no constant in bass fishing. That's what makes it so exciting. One day they're hitting white, one day they're hitting black, the next day they're hitting freaking bubble gum. You never know. So I want the two extremes of shades of color. So I'm gonna go white and I'm gonna go black, and I'm gonna use trial and error, and that's really all you can do. Usually the most productive frog days are the overcast, cloudy days, like today. Nice, beautiful overcast skies, got a few rain clouds in the distance. Perfect frog fishing conditions, and I'm all around this hydrilla and slop. I mean, it's basically textbook frog fishing conditions right now. Light breeze, slight ripple on the surface of the water. I don't like fishing frogs in a lot of wind. If you have you know, a heavy chop, it makes it a little harder. At least I feel it does. I've caught them in heavy chop before. Like I said, there are no constants in bass fishing. It's just an ever-changing environment that you have to adjust to, and you want to adjust as quickly as possible. I prefer popping frogs most of the time. There's a gazillion different frogs out there. There's ones with paddle tails in the back, blades. There's pointy-nosed frogs. There's frogs with rabbit hair legs. I mean, there's so many different varieties and types of frogs that you can use, and they're all good. And every day's different, and you never know what they're gonna hit. But all around, like all year, most of the time, I'm gonna choose a Spro popping frog. I just like the way it works. I like the commotion of it. You can walk it like a dog, walk the dog. It's just a great all-around frog. Now, if I'm wanting to burn the frog a little faster, I'll use something with a pointy nose that I can just reel real fast and it streamlines. But most of the time I want some commotion. I don't want to move it super fast, and I'll use a popping frog for that reason. Now, I like to put Gorilla Glue in the back of my frogs to make them float. Even if they get rips in them, a little touch of Gorilla Glue, they're gonna float, okay? I don't like my frog to sink, so that's why I put the Gorilla Glue in the frogs. You want to be careful not to put too much, because it'll block your hook set. You don't want your frog to be hard. When you squeeze it, you want to be able to compress it so that the air flows out of it. That way, you know, when that fish bites it, he's going to get the hooks, or she's going to get the hooks. Hopefully it's a big female. But you want it to compress, okay? After you put that Gorilla Glue, make sure it compresses so that that fish, when it bites, it gets those hooks. And I bend the hooks upward slightly. If you can see the angle of these hooks, they're slightly angled up. I'll squeeze the bend in the hook, raising the point of the hook upward. And also, I'll tilt them out as well to get a better hook set. Let's discuss the rod that I use. I'm using a heavy Halo 7.6 rod, and that gives me the power to set the hook in this grass. The frog will get pinned up in the grass. Imagine the frog, right, stuck in the grass when the fish has it. You need the power of a heavy rod to penetrate that fish's mouth. If you don't have the heavy rod, you'll never hook the fish. So you want a heavy rod, a long, heavy rod. The longer the rod, the more leverage you get. So I've got a 7.6 heavy Halo rod, and it's been doing the trick for me. Also, I want to discuss the line. You want strong braid. Now, I'm an extremist as far as line goes, and I like the lightest that I can possibly get away with. So I go with 50 or 40 pound Suffix 832 braid. Now, a lot of your frog fishermen are going to be using 65 to 80 pound test braid, but I like to use a lighter braid so I can get more movement out of the frog. Have I broken any off because of the lighter braid? No, because I'm meticulous about watching for nicks and cuts in my line. If I see anything out of the ordinary on my line, I'll cut it and retie it immediately. Now I've got a reel here that this Lew's speed spool, and it has, I believe it's a 7-to-1 gear ratio, something in that range. You want a pretty fast gear ratio so you can pull them out of the grass quickly, and this reel gets it done. I'm really a big fan of the Lew's reels now. I've only got a few of them, but they're the ones that seem to last the longest out of the reels I have. So heavy rod, 50-pound Suffix 832, and a fast gear ratio reel, and a bait caster. You want a bait caster when you're fishing a frog. A spinning rod's not going to cut it in the heavy cover. You're not going to be able to get the fish out of the slop. I mean, you might luckily get it out, but unless you're using a big saltwater rod and a giant spinning reel, you just don't have that leverage, that direct pull that a bait caster has, because it pulls in line with that spool right there. Spinning rod goes around in a circle around the spool. You don't have the power, and that's why you want to use a bait caster for fishing your frogs. So if you're missing a lot of frog fish, missing a lot of bites, and you're using a spinning rod, that's probably why. I like to color my line with a black Sharpie, so I'll just wrap the line around the end of the Sharpie and pull it. In one swipe, you've got it covered. I'm going to do two just to make sure. But just like that, now I have a more camouflaged dark line, and I'm using a real big Sharpie. The Magnum Sharpies are the best for this. I like rattles in my frogs most of the time, especially if the water's a little more stained, or if I have a heavy mat that I'm hoping the fish blow up through. So I want to show you the rattles that I like to use. So I'm using these little worm rattles. It's got 2 beads in it. It's glass. So this hole right here is where I'm going to put the rattle. I'm going to bend the frog backwards like so, and I'm going to stuff that rattle in that hole. Sometimes it takes a little work to get it in there. I'm stuffing the rattle in there. Okay, rattle's in the frog. And you can hear it rattling around in there. I don't know if you can hear that. So I'm actually going to break this rattle, and it's going to rattle even more. So I'm going to take my pliers and I'm going to crush it. Now listen to it. I like this sound a lot better. How fast do you fish the frog? And that depends on the fish every day. Now typically if it's calm and flat and not a lot of wind and a little bit bright out, you want to slow that frog down. They need that slower presentation, typically when it's super calm and no wind. Now I'm talking about fishing in mats. I'm not talking about open water. If you're fishing open water in bright sunny conditions and you want them to come up and hit a frog, you want to move it a lot faster. But if you have a lot of grass and it's, you know, you can tell it, there's nothing popping on the mats, it's a slower situation, slow down. The most important part of frog fishing is hooking the fish, right? So a lot of people get excited. They see that blow up when the fish hits and they yank the frog away from the fish. You want to try to resist that. And here's what you want to do. When that fish blows up on it, reel really fast until you feel the fish. When you feel the fish, raise the rod, set the hook hard. If you don't feel the fish, stop, let that frog float back up, pop it a couple times. Sometimes that fish will come back and hit it a second time. But you want to reel, feel the fish, and then sweep it back. But don't set that hook until you feel the fish, or you'll miss a lot of fish.